So, Paul, what is the most challenging aspect to restoring a vintage car, would you say?
Well, as an Iceman, I think it's probably time. Time is a challenge that we're faced with in this industry, where when you have it, um, you're talking about really trying to find the time in between the rest of the life too. It's like two kids and a full time job. That's frankly more than a full time job. Um, it's more of one of those things where you have to find the time to put in while not stealing it from the rest of your life.
Right. So, what are the ages of your kids, and when did you get the car, and what kind of got you into this?
Well, this car is actually very sentimental to me. So probably early 90s, I went with my dad to look at a 69 Camaro, and this is that car. This is a completely different version of that car, but the car, and he he's talking to these guys, and just being a kid, I'm just kind of there. But I remember one specific question they asked him that was kind of funny. Was like, hey, what? Or he says, what color is this car? And it was a really, really weird color green. And he said, well, where'd you get the paint for this? And they said, well, we had like three different colors in the garage. We mixed them up, and this is the color that came out of the gun when we sprayed it. And that stuck with me. Like, it was really cool going to see the car and learning what to look for in a car. Um, he got the car. We had a lot of trips together in it because it was at the time in my life where he was transitioning jobs, and he moved the whole family up to where I am now. And there was a lot of trips back and forth through that process that I rode in this car back and forth until the probably around 94, when he kind of parked the car, and that was it. Like, it just sat there. And so it has a lot of sentimental value there for me. We always talked about redoing this car, me taking it to prom. Those things never happened, but they were great dreams for us. And so as I started out in my career path and learning where life was going to take me, I just kept squirreling away money, knowing that I wanted to build a first gen Camaro. And when the time came that I had enough money that I could make a significant impact on the car, I went to my dad and said, hey, it's time, sell me the car. And he says, no, it's not going to happen. And I said, look, I saved all this money. I really want to restore it. And he said, I'll give you the car. So he gave me the car. And that was probably right around 2008, 2007, somewhere in there. And I wasn't married yet. I sunk a bunch of money into the car. Then I sunk a bunch of money into getting engaged, building a home, everything like that. So the car kind of went on the back burner, but the big thing that happened through that time frame was I was able to get it completely stripped down, all the metal work done. We were able to get it painted, and then it kind of got to that stage, and it chilled for a while while we worked on what life was throwing us at us as far as a family and building the house and developing my ice career, as you will. And then here, probably 2018, I took another big step into saying, "Hey, we're gonna finish this thing," and uh, really jumped into the drivetrain. This thing has a pretty stout engine in it. It's a modern. Everything's modern in that regard. So it really just kind of progressed into, like, we're gonna get it done. And now that it is a drivable car, we really enjoy just taking it out, whether it's just to run down to a baseball game or take it out on the track and actually race it. So it's been a nice addition to our family.
I saw you had a number seven on there. I don't know if that's just your favorite number, or yeah. I mean, are you racing the car? What are you doing with it?
So the car gets autocrossed. A good friend of mine has uh, a suspension company called UMI Performance. They build high end components for mostly late model GMC, some of your vintage stuff. They don't build anything for first gen Camaros. As much as I tried along the way to convince him that he needed to build some stuff for my car, he He's just like, that's not what we do. So um, at least he lets me bring it up to the track and play. And they put on 3 or 4 events a year there. And I try to sneak away from the ice plant when I can and go up there and play. And if you're not familiar with what autocross is relative to other styles of racing, it's a time attack against the clock. You're running a course that's everybody has the same course. There's penalties for hitting cones, and you just go out there and try to put up the best time you can in your car, and hopefully it stacks up well against everybody else, and you're competitive.
That's
Does
very cool.
does that mean you win?
I personally don't win yet. It is
Okay.
it is a fast car. It is definitely one of those things that they say practice makes perfect in a lot of different things that we do in life.
Hmm.
It's definitely true when you autocross. It's a lot of feel. There's also a lot of they just call it seat time. So you got to get seat time to be good at what those guys are doing. And they're going out there and doing it almost every weekend. And as an Iceman, when the weather's nice up here, we're selling ice, so we don't get the opportunity to go out every weekend, but we go out when we can, and say we don't get embarrassed. Let's put it that way. I usually fall middle of the pack, hopefully a little above the halfway point. Maybe I think last year I finished 12th in my group, and maybe I finished 13th, and the 12 above me, they were all very very good drivers that do it a lot. So I don't have anything to be ashamed of.
Right, right. Hey, I bet you could out handle anybody when it comes to a ice truck, though, right? So,
That's right. That's right.
So we do want to welcome everyone who's watching our first episode of Breaking the Ice. This podcast is going to be dedicated to interviewing the leaders in the ice industry, which, Paul, we view you as a large voice in the ice industry. Paul is with Genna Ice, and he has a lot of different things that we'd like to talk to him about beyond just ice. And that's why we started out with asking a question about his racing. And we're going to talk to him about a few other topics that are very unrelated to ice. But Paul, I want to go ahead and start a tradition on our podcast. We're going to ask questions that we call icebreakers that are just unique to you, that we want to kind of mix things up. And so the first one we're going to ask you today is, we happen to know that you own a bowling alley. And so we're going to ask you, what's your highest score that you've ever bowled?
So when we had the bowling alley and it was open, I found that I was really good at bowling when there was nobody around and there was no I don't want to say there was no pressure. It was just more about like I could set the pace and I could just go up there and bowl and bowl and bowl. And I did have a team in the league up there. And I think I'd be lying if told you I know exactly what my highest was. But I think it's something like a 264, somewhere in that category. And I think my average was in the 180s, high 180s. So I got a nice handicap, and whenever I came out and bowled well, it made me look like a liar because 180 is not that great of an average. But it's kind of one of those things that as you do it and it gets more serious, you fret it a little bit and you take it too seriously. It's kind of like golf for me. I think about it too much whenever I'm trying to do well.
Sure.
I've only actually bowled one time since we closed the bowling alley, and it was a horrible outing. Like I did horribly, and I was just like, you know what, I don't need to bowl anymore. It's good.
Oh, so you've retired from your bowling game. I didn't realize that your bowling alley had closed. So how long ago was that?
So it was April of 2018 that we shut
Oh,
down.
okay. Okay.
So originally, the only reason why we got into the bowling business was it was a very, very nice facility that was up for sale, had been foreclosed on. And at that time, I was looking for a little bit more space. And I looked at it and said, we could turn this into a really nice warehouse facility. And so I called the realtor, and the realtor opens the doors, and the salt and pepper shakers were still on the table. the bowling balls were still in the racks. Everything was there. And we decided that even though the prior ownership couldn't make it work, that we wanted to give the community an opportunity to support it one more time before we pulled the plug on it, forever. And we did it for a few years, and it was definitely a learning experience. It's very similar to ice in the fact that there's a lot of moving parts that go into a bowling alley. This particular one actually we had a very successful restaurant as part of it. So the numbers, the numbers that we're doing on both sides of it, it felt good, but in reality, it was just way too big for our town for us to be successful in bowling. And like I said, all the moving parts, lots of different things I had to learn equipment wise to make that stuff run. Reminded me a lot of the ice business, but I already had one full-time job. I didn't need another one.
Right. Well, so kind of moving back to ice for a moment. I know that, with Genna Ice, that's the last name of a gentleman that I believe that you were hired by. I don't recall the age, but I definitely want to, and I know our listeners want to hear your story with that. A name by the name of Gene Genna, and just would love to know more how he personally affected you and kind of drove your career.
Yeah, so Gene was he wasn't somebody I knew growing up, and actually was a friend of my dad's that said, "Hey, he's looking for some workers down there at his place." And this was 1999. I was 16 years old. I had been working some construction work for the summer, and the time had come where they were done with me for the project, and I was pretty motivated as a kid. I was like, you know what, let's go find something else to do and let's make some more money. And so I walked into his office, and I remember it like it was yesterday. Him and his wife were there, and he started asking me a few questions, and it was kind of like, well, I need somebody. When can you start? And it was probably about 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm just in a white t-shirt, a pair of jeans, and I said, whenever you need me, I'm here. Just let me know when you want me to start. And he's like, go get lunch and come back. and so I went to work the very same day that I had walked into his office, and worked for him all through high school, all through college. And after I got out of college, he actually brought me into the other side of what I do, which is ice systems and supplies. I'm a sales representative for them. He took me to one of the IPIA conventions. So my very first convention was in Tucson. And it really just opened my eyes to how much more there is to ice than the average person on the street really realizes. And of course, we see that with every industry. But when you walk into a convention and you start looking at all the equipment, and you don't ever think about how the ice gets in the bag, how that makes it to the street, the merchandiser it goes in, and everything it takes to do that at a large scale level, I was kind of blown away by it just from that side. I knew what we did in our facility because I had been working there for a number of years at that point, but really seeing that it was a whole industry, and there was a lot that went into it. It was eye-opening in that regard for sure. And then Gene, at the same time, he kind of was to the age where he says, "Hey, I'm looking for somebody to kind of help run the place." He brought me in as general manager as I got done college, and then I started doing some plant design work with the guys at Ice Systems, and the palletizers became a really big part of what we do. And it just kind of allowed me into a lot of different ice plants to see how other people did, they do things as well, and build those relationships. And so this will be my 24th year in the ice industry. Just turned 40. So I guess I probably have 25 more years, according to what the government says I should retire of doing this. So
I think that may be changing, though. You may need to extend that out a little bit.
yeah, maybe it's 30 plus. So
So that's a great segue though. Where do you see the ice industry going over the next 20, 25 years? What, as someone who's in it every day, what do you see changing?
I can see even just for the, I'll say the time that I've been with Ice Systems more than the time I've been with Genna Ice. Um, so that's about 2006 on. What I've seen is there's been a lot of consolidation along the way, um,
Mhm.
but some of that's just absolutely necessary in terms of in order to keep people um, current. And by that I mean when I came into the industry and started selling equipment, I went into a lot of plants that needed to be updated, whether it be the type of equipment they were using, the technology that they were using. And as time progressed, you see things like the palletizers, the robots becoming more and more popular, but then you still have a lot of people that weren't really ready to make that jump into the equipment that would make their life easier. Those people have kind of disappeared along the way. They were ready to be out. Um, but at the same time, I really don't think that there's going to be a major shift, even though there's consolidation happening. There's always new people coming into the industry that are interested in what we do, and they're stepping up and and starting new businesses as the need is seen in their areas. So I don't think that we're a dinosaur that's going to go extinct by any means in terms of the number of companies that are out there. I do believe that it is more refined today than it was even 15 years ago. There's a lot more people doing it. I'll say doing it correct. Not that anybody's doing it wrong per se, but we've definitely taken a stance on food safety in the last 15 years. I've seen the IPIA really driving the industry to be safer with the product we're putting out on the streets. So that's a good part of where we're going as an industry and as individual ice plants throughout the country all continue to grow and do what they do. I think they're also looking at doing it better every chance they get.
So let me ask you to go a little deeper on that. That's something I've learned about a little bit more this year as I've been getting a little more involved in the IPIA and other ICE associations around the country for the small guy who maybe doesn't know that much about the overall industry. What kind of advice or tips would you give that person that wants to take their business serious?
I think obviously everything has to happen at the scalability of a business has to happen at a reasonable pace that you can afford to invest and grow with. But economies of scale is a real thing, particularly in our industry. As you gain enough customer base that you can do things more efficiently, you have to look at what those things look like and really maximize those scenarios. We are very much like a farmer in terms of being feast or famine. Got to make it while the sun shines, kind of thing. It really is what we do. But cost mitigation in your off season and really controlling those numbers, having perhaps even a complementary business that suits
Right.
you. That's a big thing, and that goes way back. You see a lot of fuel and ice companies throughout the country, and it's because they complement each other pretty well. Allow the owners to have a workforce that can work full years for them, not just
Hmm.
gearing up in the summertime to make it through the busy season and then releasing employees and then starting all over again year after year after year. When they have something for them to do in the off season, then they can train people, get good staff, and give them a good livelihood, but also
Right.
make their lives easier because they're not retraining every year.
Yeah, I've started seeing a few people in some other industries, like say snowbiz, for instance. I've got some friends that they got. Well, actually, it's not snowbiz. It's Kona Ice. I don't know if you guys have Kona Ice up in your area or not, but
I'm
they
familiar.
got a lot of traveling trucks. So They've actually now started doing some things during the winter time because you're not selling too many snow cones during that time. So, they've got coffee, that they're trying to sell out of some of this, not necessarily the same trucks, but the same staff, so they can keep them on full time. I know that's a challenge in the ice industry. So I know when you're not working and you're not producing ice, as you've already told us about ISSI, you're out, repping equipment and staying very busy during, the off season with people, trying to do improvements in their factories and so no, that's fantastic. I've got icebreaker number 2 that I want to shift over to. So I know you've got 2 sons. I'd love for you to tell us their ages real quick, and then I've got something I need you to narrate for us real quick. So tell us about your sons.
So my oldest son's name's Parker. He's 11 years old. Nolan is 8 years old, and those are my 2 boys.
Yeah, so we've got here, through the glory of Facebook, we have the opportunity to be able to bring things up. So I need you to give me a narration of what's going on here. So who is this in the backfield? I assume it's your son taking the handoff. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not privy to this information before this moment, but I
No,
would
it's
say
not. I'll put you on the
yes,
spot. That's why they're
yes.
icebreakers, buddy.
So this is Nolan. He would be a relatively young 8-year-old in this particular video, taking a handoff out of the backfield. And if you had the audio, I think you'd probably also hear my wife just screaming like crazy right now,
I
really
think that's
stressing
correct.
to get down the field and get as far as he can. He's a fast little guy, and he loves to tell the world how fast he is too.
Well, I know it probably doesn't translate too terribly well just for the choppiness going through this. Even though we're not live, we're still doing this in a live mode, and it's just obviously we're recording. So some of the choppiness. So we apologize for that for anybody watching. But one of the things I liked about that you can't really tell, he talks with, he talks with his head, but his hips are moving without his head. So a true running back in the fact that he had people diving all over the place while he was going other way. So a pretty good running back. Now, did you or Aaron teach him those moves?
I mean, I was always a little guy on the football field, but I was always one of the fastest kids on the field. So I'm going to take credit for it. And he's also one not to be outdone. That's his general nature. And we had another video, the end of the season video, that he finally stepped up as a linebacker, and he was on the backside of a play against a much bigger kid, and it was about 40 yards down the field before he caught the kid, but he ran down a kid that probably had a foot on him and tackled him, and it was just like, finally, as a defensive player, he's coming along, and he never gave up, and that kid was 5 yards from a touchdown, and he spoiled it for him. And
Now, you saying this makes me sound like you were a defensive player. Is that right? Or where
uh,
did you play?
I came from a very small school, so the only time I let
Two-way.
I was more than a two-way player. I think the only time I came off the football field was for a punt return. I think it was.
Okay.
The rest of the time I was on the field, or I was as a split end. I was running the plays in. So I did get a little break by running the plays in, but I was on the field all the time.
All right. Well, fantastic.
So, as a dad who has kids in sports, which is the bigger challenge? Is it watching your kids play sports or running an ice company?
For the most part, particularly baseball, this is the season we're in right now. This is the first year that both my boys will be on the same little league team. Up here we have it's basically an automatic draft spot for the sibling, so that the parents only have to deal with one team.
Oh, that's good.
So our youngest got pulled into the same team. I think he was our second round pick we had to take for him. We only had 3 draft spots this year. But the coaching of your kids is, it's one of those things that watching kids play a sport is phenomenal and very enjoyable, and you kind of leave everything in the hands of the coaches. coaching your kids is a little different than that. It's very relatable, honestly, to having employees, because you know what they need to do. You tell them what they need to do. Now they know what they need to do, and they still don't do it.
Right.
So that happens in
Exactly
both.
like running a nice company, right?
Right. So it's very similar to some of your employees that they've got all the tools they need to do the job the way that it's been laid out for them, and then they choose to do it their way anyway.
I have the challenge right now. I've been coaching my kids and for my two daughters and now my son, and I finally hung up the coaching cleats on every respect. And it is quite the challenge to sit on the sidelines and be outside the fence or whatever it may be. So it's a challenge. I'm adjusting, trying. I'm trying. I'm Jeff. I'm trying. So, really trying.
It is definitely a different aspect for sure, because as somebody who coaches, I've tried to be on the sideline. Actually, last year in the minor league All Stars, I thought I was going to be on the sidelines, and I got pulled right back into it. But I get it, because you're watching somebody else coach your kids, and if you don't agree with it, that's tough too. And you try to teach them to be respectful of the situation, whether they're being coached differently than the way you would be coaching them. You're having your side conversations with them, trying to get, whether it's their form, their throwing form, their batting form, whatever the scenario is, trying to get them where they need to be. And they're going, well, coach told me to do it like this. And you're going, well, coach is wrong.
I've never said that one time. Never.
Right.
I've said that about myself, and I was the coach at the time. So
So yeah, both sides of it definitely has its challenges. And when I used to coach minor league, it was always a lot of fun, because it was coach pitch. It wasn't kid pitch at that point in time. And I inevitably would be the one to pitch to the kids. Typically, I'd hit my own kids more than I'd hit any other kid. But every once in a while, you get a parent that would have something to say about your pitching. And I would literally just stand there, hold my hand up with the ball in it, and reach out as to present it to them so they could come pitch. And never once did anybody take me up on that offer. So I said,
like,
I must not be that bad.
Come on down.
Exactly. Come on down. You want to do it? It's all yours,
That's awesome. Well, so I want to talk a little bit. Well, it's actually a two-part question. So I'd like to know if your boys are interested in getting into the cold stuff, but also your wife, Erin, and I know she's multi-talented. She's done some actress work. She's a mother. She's done business. She's a businesswoman as well. So just tell us about Erin, and then let us know about maybe the desire, or if your boys have any desire getting into the ice industry.
So Erin actually has a degree in elementary education, and I don't know if she's ever shared that with you, Ethan, but her career path was to be a teacher. She was pretty convinced that that's what she wanted to do. She got out of college, and the area wasn't in position to hire her. It was actually they were furloughing teachers the year that she graduated. So she knew it was going to be a long road to getting a teaching job in the district that she wanted to be in. And I said, why don't you interview with the bank and perhaps just get a part-time job, something that's a little bit more consistent income-wise for you, and we'll go from there. And that transpired into them offering her what they called a universal associate position. She has just a great smile, very inviting smile. And I think it just really drew them in, and they said, hey, we think you'd be great working with our customer base. We want more out of you than just being a teller on a line. So she went through that program, and an opening came up, and they took her in what was the deposit operation department of the bank at the time. And she had a very similar scenario to myself, where they saw a future in her that she didn't see in herself. And the same thing for myself in the ice business. I didn't think I'd be where I am today when I walked in as a 16-year-old into an ice plant. I was just trying to throw a few bucks in my pocket so I could run around and have a good time with my summer.
And get a Camaro, right?
And build a Camaro, right? So she ultimately worked her way right up through that department, and now she heads that department at the bank, and that's not enough for her, of course. So she has a very artsy background in terms of just really enjoys creating things, and she's done a few other things along the way where like business ventures where she did some odds and ends, but she's really big into making custom T-shirts these days. The picture you have up right now would be Greece. So she's done a number of local theater shows. This particular one, I was also in it. That's why I'm dressed the way I am there.
I wasn't sure if that was standard issue going out attire for Paul.
Right, exactly. That's how I roll on the average day. Yeah, so she's gotten me into a few. I think I've done, I want to say 3, but she's done a lot of very successful shows from Rock of Ages, Rocky Horror. She did Grease. She was in Buddy twice. They brought Buddy. You got to
You've
throw
got
that
to
one up there.
explain this one to me.
Yes,
You just
yes.
got,
So I was a fan of it. She drugged me into this one to be a background fan, and it was she looks great. I look
A little bit scary.
yeah.
yeah, I could plenty of different comments for that particular picture.
I would assume so, but it was still on Facebook, so I figured it was okay to bring up in the
Well,
podcast here.
let's
So
just put it this way: that picture, those clothing in that picture, it doesn't exist in my wardrobe on the average day, and it's not there. So
notice he said on the average day, so it's still there. So.
no, she actually went out and picked that out. So this is like,
just in case people didn't get it, we're going to go back to it just for a brief moment. So.
Yeah, go ahead. Everybody can screenshot that and
that's right.
Remind me of it. Put it on a T-shirt. Call Erin. She'll print it right on a T-shirt for you, and
that's right. That's right.
Put it on a promo cup for me, and all the good stuff there. But yeah, I mean, it's something that she really enjoys, and obviously having 2 boys that are in kind of the prime of their sporting careers as far as baseball and soccer, it makes it a little tougher these days to get in those shows. But I'm sure it's something she'll return to in the future. And she does also coach the soccer team that our youngest plays on. So she's doing a lot too. So we're constantly running.
Sounds like it. I think we've got a third icebreaker here, but this one is one Jeff wants to talk about, I believe.
Right. So I was wondering, who is the best snow skier from Alabama that you've ever met?
That's right. That is a strange question you'd ask that.
I mean,
why would you bring that one up?
I mean,
it's
I'm just curious.
Very specific question.
That's the only way best could be brought into it. That's the only way best could be brought into it.
This is true. And I assume you have some pictures of a ski outing with
actually, I
the
don't.
one and only Ethan.
I actually have no pictures because I'm not brave enough to do it, and we're doing the podcast, so I'm not gonna bring up a picture like that. So,
well, if I had any control over the podcast here, I would present everyone with the picture of you being, I guess, escorted down the slope in by the ski patrol. What looks like an injured individual, but in all reality, it was just a broken piece of equipment. But it still took us. We probably lost a good hour and a half of skiing that day, just for waiting on them to slowly take him down the hill. And I took many pictures of that, and I do have some of those.
Well, you should have sent those, but man, we're almost out of time, so it's just so sad.
How inconvenient.
Well, I would like to say that I guess I could make some things up, but yes, it was an actual issue with the binding that I had on the boot. But in some way, I almost need to say that maybe I was just trying to take a risk because I've always said, I can ski, but being from Alabama, I look like I have acne rockets, coming down, and I can go in a straight line and then fall. So that's usually that's my skiing ability.
Well,
Well,
I haven't had the pleasure of skiing with either of y'all before, but now since I can say I'm from Alabama, I'd like to challenge that answer one day.
Okay, so who is the best person from Alabama sitting in this seat that you? uh,
well, I don't know what Jeff's skiing ability is like, but
let's just
I
say he's from Canada, so he automatically trumps us, eh?
by by default, I don't know. You can say
Default.
he trumps you. I don't
Oh,
know if you can say he trumps me though.
yeah,
I mean,
probably not Paul. He's probably done a lot more skiing.
If you could, Paul, we got one other icebreaker that we want to bring up and narrate this photo that we found because it looks like I assume that's you crashing in on a snow-covered field, but I don't want to take it too far. But I don't know if someone survived from this photo. I was just curious, what's going on here?
so you're going way back here. This was 9 years ago. You're lucky you didn't ask me what I ate for breakfast. I would have remembered that, but I know the event. So this was a fundraiser that I attended where we did a wooden bat tournament in the middle of winter. I mean, you see January 26th is the date on the post there, and these ball fields were hard as rock, covered in snow, and I think that was the point of it. They had some name for it. It was something along the lines of something freeze, and it was very cold.
Well, they
Um,
nailed that name. That's for sure.
yeah. So it was a fundraiser that I participated in, and it's one of the few times I have the time to play baseball apparently or softball. Is in the middle of winter, so
All right. So I don't think we've covered it, but for anyone who's listening or watching and doesn't know Genna Ice and doesn't know you, where in the country are you guys located?
so we're central Pennsylvania, but everybody in Pennsylvania that doesn't live in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh likes to say they're from central Pennsylvania. Well, we're actually pretty close to the central part of the state, just northwest of State College, Pennsylvania, which is home of Penn State University. Our Nittany Lions up there, beating down on Auburn a little bit.
Okay.
Oh, so I assume you think Big Ten is better than the SEC, but I'm trying to remember the last quite a few champions in a row. I
We
it's
don't, we don't have to we don't have to go there, but I actually don't get too hung up on the Big Ten
right.
being the best, anything like that. I'm going to sound a little off point here when I say this, but I'm a Nittany Lion fan, and I'm a fan because I get to do business with them.
Well, that makes sense.
I mean, they do put together a great atmosphere, and I really do enjoy a lot of different events that they have over there. But it's also a relationship with the university as well. So I always say everybody that I get to work with for ICE, it's a lot easier to be supportive of their programs as well because they're supporting what we do.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I know Auburn had a home and home series with Penn State, and we lost both promptly. So I really, being a personal fan of an SEC school, we've lost twice to you guys. So kudos on that.
So a 2-year contract was enough, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. So absolutely, I've had it all. So well, kind of wrapping up. We really appreciate having you on the podcast today. Again, our first podcast. So, Paul, it's been fantastic. Just kind of encapsulating everything. You have an entrepreneurial spirit, and I believe it was on your LinkedIn page that there was a quote that I would like to just kind of bring up here that you basically said, as an Iceman, a salesman, and in life in general, it has always been my goal to leave people with an impression that is so positive that they're eager for our next conversation. Treating people well and being attentive to their needs is the primary way I'm able to accomplish this. And one of the things that I want to say about that is anybody that's ever met you before, I'm sure you've got people that aren't a Paul fan, but I would say though anybody, you always have a positive attitude, and that exemplifies who you are as a person and as a business person. So, kind of my last question and our last question would be the entrepreneurial spirit that you have, um, uh, and is that something that was just innate, or is that just something that you had to cultivate over time?
Well, just to start with, I got to remember who I had write that LinkedIn profile for me, and give them
Did you
a
pay them enough?
right. We have to revisit that, but
That's some good copy right there.
That's some good copy.
but I mean, that's honestly, that was probably a heartfelt statement. In all reality, it is how I feel, not just in my business world, but even personal world. That you know, I can't answer your question saying that it was something that's just built into me or something that has developed over my life. But I just know that it's a lot easier to be kind than it is to be a jerk. And so many people out there, they put so much energy into just being a mean person, and it's like, why would you go out of your way to create that in the world whenever it's so much easier to just be kind. And you see it every time the phone rings and somebody's um, maybe their situation isn't what they want it to be, with maybe it's how much ice they have. We'll use that as an example. Um, but you talk to them for a little bit and you find out that, oh, it's not as bad as they thought it was, and you reassure them that they're getting taken care of, um, and you're on your way with it. But on the flip side, you have scenarios every day where you're trying to resolve an issue that you have, and somebody on the other side has no skin in the game, as far as like they didn't create the situation that you're in, and you're calling them to try to get it resolved, and you're being kind to them. The their thought process on how they resolve that issue and how their willingness to help you is completely different than how it would be if you're just an absolute jerk. And I think the sooner you realize that in life, it's a lot easier to just to resolve issues and take care of the things that need taken care of, and leave the conversation with everybody happy, instead of like, I can't believe I just took that phone call. Like, I'm going to add that to my top 10 list of jerks. And because that is how it works. I mean, honestly, it's just a world out there where you're just like, come on, like, really, like, that's how you're going to address the situation. You could have done it 100 different ways, and you choose to be the jerk. And it just leaves an impression on people that it's not pleasing. It's a bad taste in the mouth. And early on, I just kind of realized that you could get a lot more done if you just approach it a certain way. And I'll give you a story that my friends like to bring up. It's actually my bachelor party, the bachelor party that I had in Las Vegas.
All right, be
Um,
prepared. We're going to have to do some heavy editing here. So,
so one of my best friends growing up actually lived in Vegas through the period of time that I was engaged and getting ready to be married. And so we decided to have a bachelor party out there. So three of us flew out. My buddy was already out there, obviously. We had a great weekend. And he's like, hey, the Vegas airport is always dead at 5 o'clock in the morning. Like, no big deal. I'll drop you off. You guys will get right through the line on your way to go. So we pull an all-nighter. We roll in. He drops us off at the Vegas airport, 5 a.m. We walk into the door and we stop. It is packed. And it's like, we aren't going to make our flight. There's every line you could think of was, out as far as it could be. We get in the line and we work our way up to it. And we're to the point where you're getting right to that cutoff where it's like, okay, if we don't get checked in soon, our luggage might not make it. We'll probably still make the flight, but we may not get our luggage on time. And we finally get to the front of that line, and I'm just kind of back there. My buddies took care of the whole trip, like good friends do for a bachelor party. And they're up there talking to the guy. I'm just kind of behind them, and they turn around. They're like, "We have to go get in that line," and we're like, "There is just no way that this is going to work, and in that moment, I came forward and I started talking to the guy. And it was just one of those conversations that I said, hey, you can do everything here that they can do over there. And in the time it's going to take you to do it, just have this conversation. This could be done and we can be on our way. But if you send us to that line over there, they're going to have to rebook us. There's a lot of logistics that are going to have to happen to get us home, where you can just solve this problem right here for us if you want to do that. It's your choice, but you can do that. You can be that person, and we can all be on our way. And keystrokes, bam, bam, done. On our way, we went. We made the flight, and the guys are ever since, the guys always bring it up whenever they're just like, you just like wowed this guy, and it just like there was no way he was going to do it, and then he just did it, and it was like just being kind. That was a moment where you could choose to go one way or the other, right. And you could absolutely flip out on that guy and feel like you were justified, and it's just not going to accomplish anything. He would have been happy to send us to the back of that other line at that point and just say, I showed those guys today. But instead, just the approach on life and the conversation allowed us the opportunity to get on the flight and not miss it. And there's probably a dozen other opportunities in life where the conversation could have went either way on pivotal moments like that really would have affected your day. And just choosing to be positive and kind made it happen. So, I'd say everybody's going to get mad and have their moments. It's just the reality of life.
Telemarketers, right? So
right. And I've plenty of those stories too. But the reality of it is that just choosing to be kind is a good part of it all. It makes you a good person. Nobody has to love you or like you, but I always say if you can look at yourself in the mirror and sleep well at night and say I'm doing the best I can, that's a good start.
And a fun non-fact here is after that trip, it actually became the next three movies of the Hangover. So
they did have to base it off. They did have to base it off of something.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I appreciate talking about that side of things, being kind and the customer service side of your role. I did want to hear your answer, though. It was kind of a two-part question. Ethan was asking about where you feel like you got your entrepreneurial spirit from. Do you think that was DNA? It was just in your makeup, or was that something that you grew into over time or learned from other people that you worked with?
I think that having Gene as a mentor over the years, it showed me what a business could look like. It showed me what a family could look like inside of a business, and just knowing that can exist in anybody's world, and then realizing what I was good at as part of that. One of the biggest things that he did for me over the years was saw things in me that I didn't see in myself. Whether that was because I was too young to see them, inexperienced, I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that he was able to accentuate those things for me. He's able to point them out and really say, hey, Paul, you should be doing our sales calls because you're smooth, you're sincere, and you're going to make sure it's done right. And so he kind of taught me things about myself that I didn't know were within me. And so I would say it was built in, perhaps, but it's still just like everything. It needs somebody to help bring it out, and he definitely did that for me along the way.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Well, thank you so much, Paul.
Absolutely.
We have enjoyed having you. For everyone watching, Jeff and Ethan with KCS, we're thanking you for joining us for episode 1. Whatever platform you're watching on, if you have the ability to leave comments, we would love to hear your questions that you would ask Paul or any of our other guests that we're going to have on. We'd love to take your feedback. And
remember what Paul said, be kind, right?
Be kind.
even on the comments.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We'd
Absolutely.
love to do this again in the future. Thanks,
Paul,
Paul.
thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a great evening.